You Charlie's friend? Guy in 2C?
Yes?
What are you doing in there?
I'm taking care of Charlie's things. That's what I'm doing here.
Charlie don't need no help. He's dead. Just like you're gonna be. I'm watching you.
Who is this?
You know what I hate? Fucking hipsters. Yeah, far from the most original sentiment, I'm well aware, but the fact is they ruin tight jeans, they ruin scarves, well, okay, mimes ruin scarves, but they ruin the music of the Beatles, piercings, tattoos, the pompadour hairstyle, the entire Pacific Northwest, and worst of all, with their self-aware snarkifying, no one ruins movies like goddamn hipsters do. Well, you see, Razorfist, Death Wish 3 isn't an action film, it's an unintentional comedy, a psychic portrait of contemporary mores, and a subtle indictment of the pro-firearm pseudo-patriotism of the Reagan-Thatcher. Nah, shitbird. Death Wish 3 is a fucking documentary. We follow Charles Bronson in the process of being Charles Bronson. Take your analytical bullshit and your 2008 Yugo with the Obama-Biden 08 sticker still plastered to the back windshield and head it on back to the taxpayer-subsidized communal flophouse to cast dry ironic chuckles at episodes of fucking Portlandia. Just because your spindly prepubescent 14th century Spanish conquistador mustache refuses to connect does not mean you are permitted to opine on the subject of Bronson. Your mustache doesn't connect because your balls have yet to descend. Bronson's doesn't connect because it's fucking afraid to. To suggest that Death Wish 3 has a bad story is to imply that it fucking requires one. Paul Kersey, having narrowly avoided capture in Los Angeles after being forcibly removed from New York City, figures the safest place to hide isn't so much on the mantelpiece as in the fucking fireplace, returning to a New York City that looks very different, not least of which because it wasn't fucking filmed there. If you find yourself transfixed by the faint aroma of bland, starchy foodstuffs, it's only because Death Wish 3 was shot in London, which gives it something in common with every minority in this movie. Bronson is in New York to visit an old friend who has once again made the cardinal mistake of being associated with Charles fucking Bronson.
Give me the money, homeboy. Give me the money now.
I guess we could add walking out of a goddamn bus terminal to the list of things Charles Bronson cannot do without it being punctuated by a brooding synthesizer riff. He legs it on back to his pal's apartment only to realize his old friend has found his new calling as a plot device.
Hey, Charlie. Jeez, Charlie, what happened?
Moving your dead asshole.
He's dead. The son of a bitch killed him. Get him out of here.
He's hauled back to the station where he's interrogated by Lieutenant Dude.
Who's this dude?
Dude, you're in big trouble.
Well, what do I do with you, dude?
Dude. The war, dude. Dude. I'm new, dude. Sir.
You always violate people's constitutional rights?
This is my jail, Kersey. And I'm the law. That means I get to violate your constitutional rights.
Take it easy, it's a police station, not the NSA. Of course, the DA and her shoulder pads, perhaps feeling her life isn't in quite enough danger, insists on becoming involved with Paul Kersey. She demands his immediate release.
You're going to have to let him out.
Inside of her, but now we're getting ahead of ourselves. With Kersey in the clink, the harsh reality of policing a burgeoning metropolis comes into incredibly sharp, incredibly bald focus.
3 murders, 4 rapes, 8 muggings, 9 acts of random violence, some of the most orderly drug traffic in the city. More robberies than I care to mention.
And that's just Bronson. Of course, an immediate solution is just one salt and pepper comb-over away.
You got it. I'll minimize the vigilante stuff with the press. Tell them it's creeps killing creeps. Nobody cares anyway. It'll be just like before, Mr. Vigilante. With one important difference. You're gonna work for me.
You're letting me loose?
I'm letting you loose.
No, that isn't the soundtrack. That's what it sounds like when 8 million criminals shit their pants in unison.
What about the gun?
A gun? I didn't see any report of a gun, did you? If there was a gun, I'd have to charge you with possessing a firearm.
They're illegal in this city.
Yeah, that seems to be working out well for you. You should stick with that. Back at Good Time Charlie's, he introduces himself to a man by the name of We're Terribly Sorry We Couldn't Afford Ernest Borgnine.
Who are you?
I was Charlie's friend.
Me too. You must be Paul.
Yeah.
I'm Bennett.
But awkward pauses and fake homoerotic sexual tension isn't all he's after.
I've got the keys to his apartment. The rent is paid till the end of the month.
Do you know if I can pay in human blood? But then it's time for a fresh episode of To Catch a Shitbag.
What's that for? The new car. That's bait.
And with that, he sits down for a quiet, uneventful dinner with Mr. and Mrs. Goldstina Witzenjuenblatt. That is until...
Come on, leave the fucking car open!
Excuse me, please.
If Paul Kersey is using his table manners, it can only mean one thing. He is about to excuse someone else from the burden of being fucking alive.
Hey. What's the problem?
What?
With the car. What's the problem?
Who are you?
We're still in the fucking car. What's it to you?
It's my car.
Now you gonna die.
The streets running red with the blood of hearing-impaired kleptomaniacs, ethnically non-threatening Hispanic sidekick guy, and Counselor Troy can at last shop at the bodega in peace. For about 5 entire minutes until they're accosted by Kofi Kingston, when suddenly, Bronson!
Hey!
Déjalo, cabrón. No me lo toque así. Déjalo. Yeah! Right on, man!
Okay, who the fuck gave Charles Bronson a leather jacket? There will not be a brown person standing by the end of this film. Of course, upon returning to the apartment building the class forgot, he discovers a prowler's been slipping in through the window, evidently with ink on his fucking shoes, and solves his problem the Bob Vila way. And did somebody call for a ham-fisted, thoroughly doomed love interest?
Well, I'm not usually this bold. Taking a taxi to some place I think someone might not be to ask them out, but...
But the raw chemistry of our 5-second-long conversation had my panties like a fucking humidor, so I figured, what the hell? They set a date for Friday, and oh, by the way, this movie is still named fucking Death Wish. Luckily, it turns out she only has a broken arm. They race to the hospital, only to learn that, well, you see, sometimes the human body can... Oh, fuck it, Death Wish 3, you explain it.
Mrs. Rodriguez has expired.
Over the phone, they told me she had just a broken arm.
The arm was badly injured.
You know, I'd say women in the Death Wish series were made of tissue paper, but so far 2 of them have survived sex with Charles Bronson.
My friend Wildy's coming.
5 words that could flash freeze a blast furnace. Bronson is referring, of course, to the 475 Wildy Magnum. But you, of course, may refer to it as, why does that howitzer have a handle and fucking trigger?
Wildy's here. Fires a 475 Wildy Magnum. Real stopping power.
Is that like a 44 Magnum?
No, a 44 Magnum is a pistol cartridge. But a 475 Wildy Magnum is a shorter version of the African big game cartridge. Well, I think I'll go down the street and get myself some ice cream. This is America, isn't it?
I'm not allowed to stand up for myself? I thought this was America. Huh? Isn't this America? I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
With a pricey Nikon slung over his shoulder as bait, it's the giggler's turn to nibble on the proverbial cheese. Well, I figure he'll just give chase and Thor's fucking beard! While satellite imaging attempts to track down the remainder of Giggler's butt-fucking sternum, Lieutenant Dude surveys the devastation.
Christ, there's not much left of this sucker, is there? How are things around here?
Better. I feel more relaxed.
He said while perched before the corpse of a moldering drug addict. In response, the Kurgan gets himself and the supporting cast of the Final Fight franchise hopped up on amphetamines and points them in the direction of the man who relocated Giggler's chest cavity. When that portable naval cannon slips from his grasp, his only recourse is to get grabby with a nearby toolbar and take refuge in the only roof that doubles as a fucking tetanus culture. Still better effects than the new RoboCop.
I'd buy that for $1.
And hey, you know what Bronson hasn't done in a while? Deflowered a woman 1/17 his age.
Do you still think you don't want to get close to someone?
No, but you should. Bronson decides the best way to bask in the post-coital afterglow is to pick up his mail. And have I mentioned lately that knowing Bronson is a glorified death sentence? My car. For the safety of the entire city of New York, Bronson is placed in protective custody, which the Mad Gear Gang take as their cue to make a move on I Can't Believe It's Not Ernest Borgnine. But if there's one prevailing moral undercurrent coursing through the varicose veins of this franchise, it's that you do not fuck with people who remember when your neighborhood was an orange grove.
Damn you. Where is he? He's not where he should be. Not where he should be.
It's okay, it happens to lots of guys your age. The Mad Gear Gang tried to stimulate his blood flow by dropping him off a second-story balcony. And yes, he fucking survived. So wait, Will Riker's girlfriend dies of a broken arm after some shitbag's dick sneezes on her, but a guy who knew Nebuchadnezzar on a first-name basis is doing Spider-Man flips out of a fucking fire escape, and he's up and about by the next goddamn day? Bronson flees police custody and legs it on over to the post office, because apparently Wildy's friends are in town. And hey, you remember that quip Yosemite Sam made in Death Wish 1 about guns being an extension of a man's crank?
What is it?
It's the law's missile launcher. Anti-tank, anti-personnel weapon. Round arms 3 feet out of the barrel.
All I got is a zip gun.
Well, you're Latino. That's to be expected.
You're racist.
With the Kurgan having phoned in reinforcements because that is totally how down-as-fuck street gangs conduct business, it isn't long before the streets are swarming with an improbably high number of murderous Caucasians. They're shattering windows, assaulting pedestrians, torching buildings. Yes, it seems the good times will last for— holy fuck, it's Bronson! Oh, they try to run, but running from Bronson with a machine gun is like— well, it's like trying to run from Bronson with a fucking machine gun.
Heavy machine gun.
Treyarch and Infinity Ward, lend me your cauliflower ears. This is what your desaturated sepia hallway simulators are fucking missing. A machine gun, a 1985 alleyway, a perpetual supply of suspiciously multicultural shitheels, and a protagonist with a leather jacket, a mustache, and a cock the size of your development budget. Fund it or be Bronson. And then there was that time Charles Bronson got in a fight with a car. And fucking won! I don't give a fuck if you eat raw tiger testes and wash it down with a tall glass of rocket fuel. You will never be this fucking manly. It is without the faintest trace of hyperbole that I proclaim that everyone fucking dies in this movie. Oh, you may think you're seated with your arms crossed enjoying some light YouTube viewing, but you were in fact killed in Death Wish 3. Just accept it. I mean, look at this fucking carnage. I have no idea how the documentary crew weren't more seriously injured, but waves of homicidal minorities also means a margin for error thinner than Bronson's mustache.
I owed you that one, dude!
Lieutenant Dude with the save. No, that's not a river of blood, it's placenta, because you and I have just witnessed the birth of the entire buddy cop genre. I I'd smacked the baby's ass, but I was killed in Death Wish 3. Alas, Bronson's out of ammo, but before he can reload his musket, he's reacquainted with an old friend. Who is promptly reacquainted with the floor? Well, that ought to keep a— holy fuck, he's a zombie!
Bulletproof, asshole.
It appears our geriatric hero has his balls to the proverbial wood paneling. God, if only he remembered to bring a giant fucking rocket launcher! Bronson blows his arch nemesis back to a time when his movies had plots. Cyndi Lauper's not pleased, but that's just the punctuation mark at the end of a great big long sentence that reads, "Fuck Cyndi Lauper." Roll credits. Fucking Finn.
They killed the giggler, man. They killed the giggler!